come back to All Too Well, but I want to begin with you as a songwriter, because one of the things you're best known for are your lyrics, your songwriting. And your lyrics are memorized, right?
Yeah.
They are studied by scholars.
Oh my God.
Yes, yeah. And I wonder, in your initial development as a songwriter coming up, how much of the process for you was visual?
It was always part of the process, because when I would write a song, I would immediately start thinking of how do I want to present this on stage? If I made a music video for this, what would it look like? And then when I would create an album, you know, partially through or halfway through, I would start conceptualizing, what does this album look like? What are the colors we're dealing with here? What are the themes? What are the aesthetics? Like, what do I want this to symbolize? Because I, from a very early point in my career, wanted to establish each album as its own era of sorts. And I think that it's really something that I can only thank the fans for, that, you know, you can't really do things like that if people don't care and pay attention to it. So it was always a part of the process, establishing the visuals. And early on, when we would make music videos, the process was, you know, I'm 16, I'd reach out to a video director, and I'd say, hey, I think it would be cool if the concept was that we were like, you know, I'm in love with my best friend in high school, and he lives across the street, and like, but there's this cheerleader who he's dating, and then there's a football game that ends with a dance, and there's these signs. Like, you know, you come up with concepts, and over time, I started to take on more and more responsibility, and the more responsibility I took on creatively, the happier I was. So here we are.
And what has your path through movies been? What films did you love growing up, and what images from movies still stay with you as a musician?
I think that it has fluctuated over time. I've always really loved certain films during certain phases I was in musically. Like, I made an album called 1989. Thank you for listening to it. I appreciate it. And I would watch John Hughes movies. I'd just watch 16 Candles and Breakfast Club all the time, just over and over. Thanks. And then, you know, this would happen throughout my career for different things, but I remember the pandemic hit, and I was watching a lot of, I remember watching 2 back-to-back Guillermo del Toro movies, Devil's Backbone and then Pan's Labyrinth. And so my whole world turned into folk tales and forests and mythical creatures, and I was just so dazzled by those films. And I'd always, obviously, like, Shape of Water is one of my favorite films ever, but I hadn't seen those 2 very pinnacle films in his repertoire. And then I watched Rear Window, which I hadn't seen, which is embarrassing, but I hadn't seen it at that point, and it was very voyeuristic. It was very much like, you know, he's watching his neighbors, and like, he sees a murder. I haven't experienced that, but I did experience combining some of those cinematic inspirations and films that I loved with, like, okay, so you end up with an album that is me telling stories from other people's perspectives in a very folk tale kind of...
a mix of Rear Window and Del Toro's movies in a way.
You know, if I had to assign, you know, the culprits cinematically, I would say it would be those 3 films.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, and then the next record, I was just non-stop watching Sense and Sensibility, the Ang Lee one, the Kate Winslet, just everything. And that was for an album called Evermore. It's just, I have very specific film memories for things. But with this one, I think my obsession with, there was this, I don't know if it's actually something people talk about, but in my mind, there's this period of time in the 70s where you started seeing these romantic films where these 2 characters are so beautifully, intimately woven together, and then they just unravel the braid right in front of you, and you just can't believe it. Like The Way We Were, and Love Story, Kramer versus Kramer.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention that one.
Yeah, it's just
amazing.
Yeah, and so those ones were ones that I think, because I love those films, just hitting those emotional touchstones that those films just punch me in the stomach and hit. And then I think in terms of modern films that I loved that probably lended themselves to making this film, I would say Marriage Story, really upsetting for months. I was not all right. And The Souvenir Part 1 and 2.
Oh yes, Joanna Hogg's
Joanna
films.
Hogg's films.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love that I had actually made the short film by the time I went and saw The Souvenir Part 2. And the fact that it's about this young woman who experiences this extreme heartbreak and despair and then makes something. It's just like, that's exactly,
Speaking to you.
it's exactly what I want to see in a film. So.
You mentioned the 70s. I heard that you also like John Cassavetes'
Yes,
films.
yes,
from the
yes,
70s.
yes.
So also big heartbreak, big emotion.
Yeah, and I just think I don't know, I just really love how he allows despair and human emotion to just play out.
Yeah.
It just is allowed to breathe and play itself out.
You see the loose ends,
Yes.
right? It's not tied up.
You feel like you're really in that house with that
Yeah.
fight going on, and it's just harrowing.
Yes. Well, the fight that you crafted here also feels that way, and I love how the music stops and you really begin to see their relationship kind of disintegrate
Yeah.
and then come back together a little bit, but it feels like it draws on some of that same kind of spirit from those 70s movies.
Such a nice thing for you to say to me. I think you can tell a lot about people based on how they fight or argue. And I think with this film, I went into it having scripted out a few different scenes and knowing that I wanted to show one of them in depth and at length. And when it came time to shoot, you know, we filmed them breaking up. We filmed them falling in love, some of the dialogue with that. But I kind of, as we got closer to it, I was like, it's gonna be the fight. I think that we had scripted it out, but I had talked to Dylan and Sadie so much about what their intentions were and what exactly it is that's the catalyst for this fight and why it's not about him just dropping her hand. It's about this entire just molecular structure where she feels out of place and he feels unequipped to handle that, and it all comes back to being in different places in their lives, having this huge gap of age difference between them. She's still got 1 foot in girlhood, 1 foot in this very adult world. His life is very cultivated. I just felt like we had talked so much about it, that I was dealing with such emotionally intelligent actors, and we talked so much about this that when we actually shot, it ended up being, like, I think probably 92% of that scene is a oneer.
Really?
Yeah, we don't cut till the very end until he says, "Why, don't look at me like that."
Yeah.
That's the first time we cut. And we were just, my producer Saul and I were just at the monitors, just like there was like a death clutch as we're watching this, because we're like, oh my God, like we're injuring each other's arms at this point, like, but also trying not to make a sound, because we're just so in awe of how much we could trust these actors with every single bit of the scene, the story, the weight.
So much is in the writing, I think, as well, your writing, because
Aww.
you really, serious.
Thanks.
You know, for me, when I was watching, I've seen this short film many times now, and what I really got from it is that she does not feel seen in that relationship, and she's trying to tell him about an instance where she did not feel seen in the company of his friends, and he's not really getting it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's such a powerful moment because they're so intimate and yet so far apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really amazing takeaway, because I've always been very fascinated, and one of the reasons I wanted to make a short film and not a music video for this song is because I've been fascinated with the dynamic of the age of the character that Sadie's playing, and what a precarious age that is when you could fit back at your family home, sort of, but you sort of don't. You could fit in an adult's cultivated apartment where they have like a French press and they have all the things that adults have, but you kind of don't. So you kind of fit everywhere, but you kind of fit nowhere. And I think that plays into a little bit of where she's coming from. And I have to credit Dylan too with the fact that I know that he's gaslighting her, and I know that he's like, I know it's problematic, but I'm watching that and I'm like, he is so charismatic. He is charismatic, problematic, and I am still sort of rooting for them to work through this, because he makes some charming points, and he does it in a really, really, like, I don't know, just the way that they both played it, I was just blown away.
It's beautiful, because I'm sure so many people relate to it as well, because charismatic, problematic, definition of a boyfriend, maybe?
An ex-boyfriend.
Okay, an ex-boyfriend. I don't know how far I want to go with that, but...
Zero.
Zero. That's
Nowhere.
You mentioned music videos, and I do want to go back, because before you directed this film, you began to have increasing visual input into the making of your music videos. And I want to ask about that process, how you were drawn to getting into the creativity of the music videos as opposed to just being on camera. The collaborators, you've worked with a couple of directors quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious to know what that process was like for you to get more and more creative input and control ultimately into your videos.
Yeah, it was a baby steps process. It wasn't like I woke up one day and I was like, you know what I want to do? Direct. Like that was never something that I was programmed to say to myself, because I didn't go to film school. I've been on the set of 60 plus music videos, and I've learned a lot from that process, because I've always got my eyes and ears open, and I'm always looking at shots and thinking, I like that one, I don't like that, why and why not? I like that lighting, I don't like that light, why and why not? And so you kind of are learning based on your experience, but I had a really, really close creative relationship with Joseph Kahn, who's just like a legend in music videos. He did Toxic by Britney Spears, and just to give you an example of what we're dealing with. And we made several music videos, and we got to the point where I'd call him up and I'd be like, okay, wrote this song called Look What You Made Me Do. I want to come out of the ground as a zombie, right? We're seeing my hand out of the ground, and then I'm dead, and then I'm in a bathtub of diamonds, and then there's a mountain of me's trying to kill the current me, and he'd be on the phone and be like, yeah, I know exactly what we're doing. Okay, amazing. And so having that relationship where essentially it got to the point where I was sort of starting to write the treatments to the videos, and I then decided it might be really cool to co-direct and to step into that role. And so I got to co-direct a few videos with incredible collaborators, and I learned what it was like to start writing in-depth treatments and shot listing and really leaning into it. But when I did it on my own, that was when I really learned everything.
Yeah. Because you have to, I guess.
You have to, and it was so surprising to me, because I didn't really want to turn back after that. I just had so much fun. The first video I directed on my own was a video called The Man. It's weird because I'm prosthetically turned into a dude for the whole video. So this was the first video I ever directed on my own. So if you can imagine me trying to direct child actors while I'm dressed prosthetically as a man. I've got prosthetic, rubber, whatever they put on you, on my face, and I'm trying to talk to little kids about what their action is, and they know something's not quite right, and their mom told them that this is Taylor Swift, but they don't really understand how that could be possible.
You have a beard, and you have a bodysuit on.
It was honestly it was incredible. The experience was so wild and wonderful, and I got to work with the incredible Rodrigo Prieto as my DP, which I still can't believe that happened to me, because he's just so incredible. Yeah, and so that happened, and then the pandemic happened, and I ended up directing in the middle of the sourdough early phase of the pandemic, this video called Cardigan. And then I did another one song called Willow, and that was when I thought, you know, I feel like I could do more. I feel like I feel like I'm ready for more, and so that was when I decided to make the short film for All Too Well.
You also draw from movies for some of the imagery in your films, and there's these great references. The Man reminded me at the beginning, anyhow, Wolf of Wall Street.
Thank you.
There's
Honestly,
vibe there
deeply on purpose.
Yeah.
I love that film.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore that film so much. So it's kind of like an homage. You know?
Sure.
People, when you reference things, like, people don't know if you're trolling or if you're like, I love that film. I absolutely love that film.
And
I really
the Bad Blood video is all like futuristic action movie. Like,
yeah, it's you know, the espionage. That's a phone call with me and Joseph Kahn where I'm like, what if Selena kicks me out a window and tries to kill me, but I don't die, and then I go to spy school and they all teach me how to fight. And he's like, yeah, there's explosions, and you know, so yeah, that was a blast, and that was kind of like tipping our hat to the kind of spy thriller genre.
Yes. All right, so I want to ask you more about going from the videos that you directed to this one, the short film, because it feels like, just in terms of your creative evolution, there's more ambition here, you're doing more with it, shooting on 35, longer format, there's a whole dramatic, intense scene there, which could have come out of Marriage Story, almost, you know.
I need some water.
It has that
so
kind
cool
of
of you to say that.
emotional intensity. It's raw, like that Noah Baumbach film is. So I want to ask about just putting that film together, particularly the technical side of it, deciding to shoot on 35 millimeter, deciding on the 1.33 aspect ratio, that kind of old vibe and the richness of those colors and the shallow focus, all of those things are decisions that you made, and I want to know what those decisions were toward. What was the impact you wanted from all of those things?
Well, all the decisions that you make, it's such a beautifully collaborative process. You make decisions, you know, based on your idea as to how you want it to feel, how you want it to look, and then you bring on people you trust. Like, I trust Rena Yang, our DP, implicitly. I absolutely was so lucky to get to work with her, and brought her on early on and showed her my endless mood boards and my references and what I was looking for in terms of lighting and color and texture, and it was pretty apparent that we both wanted to shoot on 35 millimeter. I did not know how to do that.
Sure.
I've never done it before.
People mostly don't do that anymore.
Yeah, and so she's excellent at it, and so, you know, she was the one who was like, I think we should shoot, you know, interiors on Vision 3 500T stock. I think we should shoot the exteriors on Ektachrome because I love the way that the greens are going to pop.
Your film stocks, Taylor.
She taught me a lot.
Okay.
She really taught me a lot, and I never would have known anything at all without her. So, you know, it was also kind of talking about making intentional, purposeful decisions about lighting, warm tones versus cool tones, and how we want her apartment to feel versus his world to feel, and we wanted them to feel very different. And we figured, since we're dealing with a short film, we don't have a lot of time to say much about their identities, so we wanted to make technical, subtle decisions in terms of lighting and set design. We worked with the incredible Ethan Tobman, and one of my favorite references of set design is in The Way We Were. Barbara Streisand plays this character called Katie, and her apartment, when you look at her apartment, that's who she is. It's her interests, it's her politics, it's the books she reads, it's who she is. Yeah. And I wanted, Sadie plays a character named Her. I wanted her apartment to be her. I wanted it to look like who she is. And I wanted the same for his space. You know, clean and cool and minimalist and mature and sophisticated and elegant and sexy and dark. So
you see that, and sometimes audiences pick that up consciously, but sometimes they're just kind of absorbing it. They don't even know that they're actually understanding more about the character by watching their environment.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
I want to ask you about casting Dylan O'Brien and Sadie Sink, and not just each individual actor, but the two of them together. That's important too.
Yes. I don't know if it was a decision. It was what my heart needed for this film. It was a very instinctual decision based on having watched their performances. If I had to assign analytical thought to it, I would say I had never seen either one of them play roles like this before. And I'd seen them just ace anything that was put in front of them, and I just thought, I wonder if Sadie Sink wants to play a romantic lead. I know I haven't seen it yet. I think she's at that perfect point in her career where she could, I think she could absolutely, as the kids would say, eat this up.
Yes.
You know, and basically with Dylan, it was that charisma that I'd seen his films, and I'd seen him, even just him doing an interview, you can see that he's got this just like, this dangerous charm. Like him as a person, he's not a dangerous, but he's dangerously charming, and that he's just like, that is a power that he has. And so I was looking, I also just, when I write, I really gravitate towards, looking up to writer-directors, because that's the way that I can make sense of writing, and then knowing what shots I want and directing, if I've written it. And then when I was writing it, I just was writing Sadie. Like I wasn't thinking of any other actress or thinking of a generic, beautiful, wide-eyed young person. I was writing it for Sadie, and if she would have said no, I just don't know if I would have made the film, honestly.
Oh.
Yeah, it's true. It's the...
Who could say no to you?
It's true. And I also just really, really wanted them both to say yes, because I know we have to compromise in life, but I didn't have a backup plan, and I didn't want to compromise. And I was just so happy that they trusted me and that they believed in me. And I was a first-time short film director, and I couldn't believe that they wanted to do it. I still can't believe that anybody wanted to do this with me. I'm so happy about it.
Well, you delivered, right?
Thank you for saying that.
That's all you need. Did you screen test them together or rehearse with them together?
No. I texted Dylan the longest text you've ever seen. Like it was when I read it back, I was like, that was too much. And straight up, like, reached out to Sadie's team, and we're just like, we want to make something. I think was it a text or a call? Long text and then a call. It was, I was just like, please. Like, I wasn't trying to be cool at all.
No chill.
I was like, I promise, no one will work harder to make this good than me. Like, I don't know if I went that far, but I was just, I think they were amazing. They didn't need to be convinced in a way that I was able to pick up on. So I was so happy, because you want to make things with people who are excited to make things with you. I don't really do that well with people who are like, I'm not sure about you, prove it. Like, I'm okay, I will, but that's not as fun. Like, if I have to do it, I will prove it. But it would be so much better if you just really wanted to make stuff with us. And so that's what we were lucky enough to have.
All of the evolution we've been talking about, from beginning to contribute to and collaborate on music videos to making your own short films, and this one, particularly recently, it's coincided with you taking back control of your music.
Yeah.
Which we've all been following.
I really appreciate you saying that. But if you're new to this saga, what Cameron's referencing is that basically, I started out on an indie record label I signed when I was a teenager, and I had always had the hope, desire, and dream of buying back my master recordings for my first 6 albums when it came time when my record deal was fulfilled. When my deal was done, that didn't happen. My music was all sold to an outside party. And yeah.
At least we got the
but
10-minute all too well.
What happened was like a period of like extreme despair for me. And then I came out of that and said to myself, if I made that music the first time, I can make it a second time. And it was so exciting, honestly, to get to do something that I haven't really seen done in the music industry in this particular way.
Stroke of genius.
That is so nice. That is
No.
so nice. And so basically, we treat them like they're big releases. Like we do a whole album. We redo the entire photo shoot. You know, we make music videos, and sometimes we make a short film. And so it's really been, honestly, insanely beautiful, because you have like, you know, my friend's daughter is like 12, and her friends were saying like, oh, like we love this new Taylor Swift song that just came out called "You Belong with Me." And I was like, who's gonna tell her? No, like, don't tell her. That's a really old song that came out in like 2008 or something. So it's really been an amazing opportunity to revisit my old music, make exact copies of the old music. And what I also do now is there were a lot of songs that I wrote that didn't end up on the album. So we call those songs from the vault tracks. So I record them, I put them out. So it's been really wonderful, and it's only been possible because the fans actually want this to happen. I can't believe that too. Like, that's amazing.
Lucky us.
You guys have been so wonderful about it. But basically this song, All Too Well, the 10-minute version, has a very long story. It is a story about as long as the song, but I'll try to make it shorter. This was a song that originally was released on an album called Red in 2012. Thank you so much. You guys are great. And it was a song that I loved so much, but it was never chosen by, you know, an A&R team in a conference room as being a single. Nobody saw the potential in it, except for the fans, who loved it so much that they made it sort of their favorite song on that album. For me, the song was so tough because it was about something that at that point was very current for me. I would have a really hard time performing it at the time. Like, I had to really force myself to focus on other things to try to get through it during tour. So there would be no world in which I could have made a visual element to that song at that point in time. I needed 10 years of sort of retrospect in order to know what I would even make to tell a version of that story visually. And I'm so grateful that I was able to do that with some crazy stroke of all these different twists of fate. Can't believe it.
Do you make a connection between coming to the point where you can create your own images and owning your own music? What's the connection?
I think it's very connected, and not in a way that was conscious, but I think in a way where, you know, hopefully the more years you live, the more things you learn, and you hope that you get braver as time goes on. And I've been very lucky to, you know, when I've taken these baby steps creatively, I've been very lucky to have people go like, no, go further, it's great, keep going, you know. It's and I think I would have really tried to keep expanding creatively even if I had been squashed the first time I tried to make something. But it was really beautiful that we're in a place where hearing the idea of a female filmmaker doesn't make you roll your eyes or think as skeptically as it once was, and we have, you know, so many incredible female filmmakers to thank for that.
Yes.
You know?
A lot of them here at the festival.
Absolutely. And I just feel really grateful. You think about people like Nora Ephron, who, you know, there's people who paved the path, and then there's Nora Ephron, in the forest with a machete, just hacking, to where the path will be paved. And I think about writer-directors like that who inspired the writer-directors who inspired me. It's like a whole, I think about people like that all the time.
Mm-hmm. I want to go to actually a question we have from somebody on Twitter. We've got a few questions from social media.
Love.
Because it's related. This is at longstoryswift on Twitter.
Excellent.
And they ask, right, pretty
Solid.
good handle, yeah. I loved your shout out to female directors at the VMAs. Are there any female directors in particular that inspired your vision for this film?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, Nora Ephron as a writer-director. I love Chloe Zhao. I love Greta Gerwig. I love Lena Dunham. There are so many people that I absolutely adore who are making films in such like brave, bold, inspiring ways. And they're women that I just look up to and admire and have sometimes been like lucky enough to be in a room with, or Lena is always there for me if I have a question, and just such a good friend.
And she's got a new film here at the
Yes,
festival
she
as well.
does!
Right?
I've seen it, it's so good. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And a nice departure for her as well.
Yes.
It's set way, way in the past, and it's also hilarious.
It's one of my favorite things she's ever done,
Yes.
so go see it.
Another question, also from Twitter, from @wildflowerhoax. And they're asking, tell us about the lighting in All Too Well, the short film. What was the significance and the contrast between warm and cold? Talk a little bit about this.
It's really good to be asked this question.
And this person says, I've seen dozens of theories, but would love to hear the intent behind it.
So, I really wanted this. I had a few overarching goals with the lighting and, you know, just sort of the coloring and everything. I really wanted this short film to feel like autumn. And not the entire time you're watching it, but in your memory. I referenced the film Love Story from like 1970 earlier, and when I think of that film, I think of autumn. I just do. Right. And so I was trying to, I think, establish that in the earlier parts of the short film. And like when they're falling in love, I wanted that to feel warmer. And when we're in his world, his apartment, I wanted it to feel cooler. And then when Sadie goes into her periods of despair and reeling, I wanted her world to become cooler. And then in the end, when we see her grown up, I wanted it to be a bit of a combination of both, almost to symbolize that she is still herself, but she has been changed by this experience. And I wanted that to make us both happy and sad at the same time. But I think that it's also important when you think about the worlds that you're creating. Like, we were working within the framework of chapters. We had this amazing typography studio called Fraser Mugridge do these bespoke chapter title cards, and those were there because I wanted you to realize in the end that Sadie had been, that these are chapters of Sadie's character's book. So when you see the chapters like "Are You Real?" and the first crack in the glass, you realize in the end that
this is the story she's telling about her.
Yes, this is her reflecting back, and these are chapters of her book, and these are the things that you're seeing taking place that you would read about in the book that she was writing. So we wanted there to be sort of like we wanted her to seem a little bit changed in the end, even with the set design. The house where she lives in the end looks a little bit more like where he lived than where she was before.
So she has actually taken something from that relationship.
Yeah, good and bad.
Yeah, interesting. There's another element in the film that there are a lot of theories about, which is that red scarf.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the red scarf? Because there must have been a lot of decisions that went into exactly
what can I tell you is the question.
Did you get it back?
Basically, stop it. Stop it. Basically, the scarf is a metaphor, and we turned it red because red is a very important color in this album, which is called Red. And I think when I say it's a metaphor,
real?
I'm just going to stop. And I'm going to say thanks for the incredible question to whoever asked it. You've really taken us for a ride. Thank you.
The scarf question was mine, actually.
Thanks, at Cameron Bailey.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right, but I am going to go back to, this time, TikTok.
Yes.
Zara on TikTok is asking, are there any other genres within filmmaking that you'd be eager to pursue?
Ooh.
Something in midnight?
Oh.
It's a good suggestion. I think I will always want to tell human stories about human emotion. I never say never, but I can't imagine myself like filming an action sequence. It's just for me, like if it happens one day,
You will.
honestly, like that'll be funny character growth. But at this point, I want to, I could see it going. I could see it going in a more comedic, irreverent place. I could see it being a little bit, I don't always see myself telling stories about extreme guttural heartbreak at your most formative age that really sort of, debilitates you emotionally for years, and then you have to like develop the scar tissue in order to move on with your life. And then limp your way to your typewriter and write a novel about it because you're still,
Yeah, you can't keep doing that.
No.
It's going to be painful.
I think I've done that.
Yeah.
So I would love to. I'd love to keep taking baby steps forward, and I think that I'm at a place now where like the next baby step is like not a baby step. It would be committing to making a film, and I feel like I would just absolutely love for the right opportunity to arise, because I absolutely adore telling stories this way.
Can I
That's
be
where
a
was
part of
going
it?
as well. Feature film's got to be that.
Oh my god.
If it were the right thing, it would be such a privilege and an honor. And I also just do want to say that I'm aware of the fact that I'm in an incredibly privileged place to have gotten to finance this short film independently. Because when we talk about female filmmakers, I am one of them, but I also realize that there are people who are working so hard to get financing and to get any type of budget together to make the productions and the projects that they want to make. So I honestly bow down and tip my hat to those female filmmakers.
We have an initiative here at TIFF called Share Her Journey, which is all about supporting female filmmakers. We've been doing it for 5 years now, and it's just, there are doors that need to be opened or kicked down in order for women to have more opportunities that they usually don't. There are incredible stats about women graduating film school at the same rate as men, but then 10 years into their careers, very different.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So things still need to change, but it's great that you're aware of that and the need for change.
It's great that you're taking those initiatives. That's amazing.
Trying to do our bit.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I should have like a URL for you all to go to, but I don't right now.
They're very resourceful.
I'm sure you are. You will find it. You still have your music career, of course, right? We're talking about your film work, but how are you going to balance it?
Last time I checked, I love that. I do have my music career.
And is how much of the visual side of it, whether it's more films, music videos, that kind of thing, how much do you think that will take up of your time and creativity?
It's an interesting projection to try to come up with, having not thought about that exact thing ever before. I really, I have a lot of bandwidth to put into creative things. And I get exhausted by things in life, but they're never creative things. I love making stuff, and I'm for the last 5 or 6 years, I've just been I just love making stuff. I just want to never do anything but make stuff. So I just hope that keeps going. I am so lucky to be supported by kind, generous, nice, thoughtful people who seem to care about stuff I make. I just hope that keeps going. I'm gonna keep working hard, trying my best. All of that, and I would absolutely love to expand in terms of filmmaking and storytelling, and keep, it's a natural extension of my writing. I really feel that, and as long as I can keep doing all the natural extensions of my writing, doing shows is a natural extension of my writing. I love that too. I want to do all the things.
Well, Taylor, we're out of time, but I just want to thank you so much for this conversation. I'm hearing that we have a little bit more time. Thank you.
Yeah!
If you're willing, we'll keep it going for just a little bit
Yeah, I
longer.
would love it.
We need to stop.
I Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's okay. It's just flowers.
Whoa.
It was fast though.
Can you
All right.
can you sing a song?
I wanted to ask you, you talked about Sadie and Dylan as the actors that you absolutely wanted for All Too Well, the short film. And in future film projects or just ideas that might be percolating, I wonder if there's certain actors that you have in mind.
Totally. I definitely do. But if I say, you know, if I say that, then if I go to them and say, they'll already know. Do you know what I mean? And then I won't have an opportunity to write them like a novel length text, which honestly, there's just something in that, you know? Me just begging people to work with me.
But who could say no to you?
Or voice memo or whatever it is that I did. No, I absolutely, there are so many actors out there that when I watch a film, I think that sparks a character that, you know, or they seem like actors that you could trust with filling them in on the scene, writing it, but also saying, okay, now do a take where I want to see what you would do if you could forget parts of the script and just do this as the character. That's what I had with Dylan and Sadie.
Yeah.
It was really, you know, we safeguarded it so that there was a script, but I'm gonna be honest with you, when you compliment the writing in that scene, a lot of that is them. So, because they're just brilliant and they're so natural, and their chemistry was so electric that I could not possibly take credit for all the things that they said and the ways that they said them. It was just like phenomenal to watch it happen. So those moments are the things that as a storyteller, you're just sitting there thinking, it is the most brilliant thing when that many people can come together to collaborate. Because when I'm making music, it's usually, you know, either me writing on my own or I'm in a studio with one other person. And it's a very, that's two people, and that feels collaborative and fun. But when you are on a film set, sometimes you just catch yourself looking over at the camera operator or the first AD or someone hanging a light in the perfect exact spot, and you're just thinking, I cannot believe how talented and so specialized and brilliant these people are, and we're all working together to make this. And when you have it culminate in a scene like what Sadie and Dylan did over and over again during this short film, it just feels it feels like a big group hug. I can't watch it without when Sadie, I know it's become a meme, but but when I watch Sadie see him call her and she's laying in bed and she's crying so hard that she actually physically grabs her chest, it just really messes me up. Like, it actually physically hurts me when I see that, because it does, because she's so talented and she really makes me believe that she's going through that. And their chemistry in this was so good that I actually, by the end of watching it, I just wish that I wish he would kind of maybe like go in the bookstore. But it is, I did want to end it in terms of, you know, I think it's really just devastating when a character goes from being in another character's life to then being a voyeur, watching from the outside in. Like, you were a main character, and now you're standing outside a window. There's that barrier is just so brutal. Anyway.
We come back to brutal one way or the other.
Yeah.
There's something in what you said in terms of the scene where Sadie's clutching her chest, which sounds like that wasn't direction. That was something that she came to, or was it a combination? How did you?
That was something that one we were going for.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Well, I didn't say clutch your chest, but there were these moments where we knew we were filming a certain phase of her grieving, and we knew some of it was, you know, different phases of her letting go of this person, and this was one of the ones that Sadie and I knew from the jump that this one was going to be, you know, the kind of crying that like racks your body, like just the kind of crying where you can't breathe. And she got herself there in a way that was so unbelievably impressive. And I mean, her face was completely red in her body, and it was in her body, that crying. And when I saw her preparing, you know, you want to ask an actor what way in which they want to prepare for that, and like she got herself there to a place that I think really makes people, when they watch it, they know that she's emotionally, physically, mentally hurt. There's every aspect of pain coursing through this person, and for her to give us that performance is genuinely just such a generous thing to do as a performer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.